Hi, I'm Irina. I'm a Finnish language coach, and today I want to talk about pronunciation. So, whether you're a beginner to Finnish, you're an intermediate, or you're just thinking about starting out with Finnish, then I'm guessing there's a reason that you clicked on this video about pronunciation. So, what we're going to talk about is the pronunciation dilemma that can either sink or swim your entire learning process, the ripple effect that pronunciation has on your progress or lack thereof, how to know if pronunciation is the thing that's holding you back, and my advice as a language coach on what to do about it. For those of you that want to go even deeper into this topic, I'll have some next steps for you at the end of the video. All right, so ready? Let's go. All right, so let's talk about the pronunciation dilemma, or what I sometimes call the silent motivation killer. Okay, so pronunciation is this thing that's vastly underrated. I mean, how often do you hear somebody talking about pronunciation, on how to improve it, on how to develop it, right? You might see it mentioned at the beginning of your Finnish textbook, but it's not really something that's focused on in courses. And the issue is that we tend to see it as an either you have it, some people just run with it, or you don't situation. And I see a huge problem with this because pronunciation is the very first step, right? So if you believe that you either have it or you don't, and you're in this camp of I don't have it, you don't know to look for solutions, right? We get stuck in this box of like, okay, well, I don't have it, and it's the very first step. So I see a lot of people getting stuck there, and that's why I call it the silent motivation killer, because it's like step one, shit. Right? But the good news, and this is like, yelling it from the rooftops, the good news is if you understand how pronunciation is developed, you can improve it. It's as simple as that, right? So, with the right tools, we can all learn to pronounce any sound and speak any language on this beautiful planet because you are wired for language, right? So, next, now that we have this pronunciation dilemma and we understand what it's all about, let's turn to the ripple effect of pronunciation in our progress or lack thereof. Okay, so if we take a step back and we think about language learning in general, and we think about, okay, the role that pronunciation plays, well, it's going to impact absolutely every single word that you ever say in Finnish, right? And read, right? Because you read the word and you're thinking about how to say it. Or things you hear as well. You hear the word, do you know how to spell it? Do you know how to say it yourself? So it touches everything, right? Language is spoken. And for most of us, pronunciation is also closely tied to confidence, to our willingness to speak, and our ability to make ourselves understood. So think about it. The more that we speak and the more that we converse with other people, the more and the faster we learn. But let's say that I try to say something to someone, they don't understand me. I get very embarrassed, and then I avoid situations to speak in the future. Then I also avoid, you know, progress and the momentum that comes with that progress. So that's an issue, right? Um, Pronunciation is a huge, huge part of that because if we stop speaking, we stop learning. And last but not least, pronunciation. This is maybe the one that's like less obvious, like people don't quite see the connection. But pronunciation can also affect learning and memory, right? So I see a lot of intermediate speakers, for example, who are struggling with more sophisticated grammar. And upon further investigation, I realized they're still struggling with the basic sounds of Finnish, right? A, u, double letters, and consonants or double vowels. So it depends what specifically you might be struggling with from those, so they can affect memory or learning to various extents. But if you're wondering how or what's the connection? It's that if you think about it, if you're struggling with the most basic building blocks of the language, the sounds themselves, to then add them up and build on top of that, it's like you're building on this really shaky foundation. So just like building a house, do you want the land to be shaky and hilly, or do you want it to be solid and flat, right? That's the kind of foundation that you have. So you want to start with those basic building blocks, and those are the sounds of the language. And if you skip past it, it's just going to keep affecting, things as you go. Okay, so let's see how this applies to you. How do you know if pronunciation is the thing that's holding you back? So some people, they start off with Finnish, they hear it, they run with it, no problem. And that's really cool to see because, it's possible. It's not an issue for them. But what we don't see in those situations are the skills and the languages that those people had before learning Finnish, right? So they have also done the work, but just in different ways, in different scenarios. Now, for those who, start and immediately encounter a challenge, here are some patterns that I see. So not even with beginners, but with people who are looking at the Finnish language and thinking about starting and trying to kind of figure out pronunciation, right? We don't have the option a lot of times to take a pronunciation course. So it's easy to put it off, right? And just put off learning Finnish altogether. That's one of the big things that I see. Another thing are beginners who start off and aren't clear on the sounds, so they avoid speaking. They stick to the written material, but that also, the avoidance of speaking, as we talked about, you avoid progress, you avoid momentum. So that any progress comes by really hard. It's hard to get there. It takes a lot of work and effort. Then I see the intermediates, like I mentioned, who struggle with the foundational elements, the sounds, and then it's really hard to build on top of that. So maybe you find yourself in some of these descriptions, maybe not, I don't know. But I hope that this has kind of helped, clear up the impact of pronunciation. And now I hope to see you on the pronunciation is very important bandwagon. All right, so what can you do about this? Okay, and my advice as a language coach is that regardless of the level, I would say that the prescription is the same. Okay, and that is to focus on pronunciation. So don't avoid it, don't gloss over it, don't curse the Finnish gods for having made Finnish sound this way, but spend some dedicated time pronouncing. Okay, as you would with any other skill that you're developing. So just think about it, right? We skip over it and then we're annoyed with it. But what if we just consciously, intentionally dedicate our time and attention to it? It can be as simple as that. And suddenly, when we fill in that shaky foundation, we flatten it out, right? We make it sturdy, everything becomes so much easier. Okay, so for those of you who would like my help going into this topic, deeper, I have made a course because it was something that I saw so many of my students struggling with. It's called the Finnish Soundscape. And in it, we go through all of the sounds in the Finnish language, and we also talk about pronunciation as a process, right? Not something as you either have or don't, but how do you actually get from this is really unfamiliar to me to I can actually create these sounds myself. Okay, and it's a 7-day opportunity to focus solely on strengthening the foundation of your Finnish pronunciation. Nothing else. No prior experience required. Beginner, intermediates, people who are just started learning Finnish, everyone is welcome. Okay, so that is what I have for you today on pronunciation. Ooh, I'll put the link below for the Finnish Soundscape for those of you who want to continue. I hope this was helpful. If you had any insights, I'd love to hear them. If you had any questions, or if you didn't see yourself in one of those descriptions, then yeah, I'd love to hear more about your situation. Who knows, maybe there's something I missed in there. And yeah, I'll see you next time, and thank you so much for watching.